You know, for me, that period in a way was the kind of, you know, the gem in all of that was Dark Globe, which I still find myself sitting, you know, I can be driving along in the car and I'll certainly sing it, and which seemed to me to be, you know, a direct continuation of the songs that he wrote when he was still in the band, but he was already schizophrenic and consequently was feeling this awful alienation from everything and everybody. And he wrote, you know, it's awfully considerate of you to think of me here, and it's awfully something making it clear that I'm not here and I never knew the moon. Jugband Blues, on Jugband Blues. And he also wrote Vegetable Man then as well, which I think is going to be released on, or maybe it has been released, I don't know, on some compilation. But
Dark Globe is...
They, you know, oh, where are you now, Pussy Willow, who smiled on this leaf? You know, it was like so weird and crazy, but yet it is, I get chills just talking about it without even singing it or anything. And of course so did a lot of other people. You know, as a story, I went to see REM when they were a very new band, because I'd heard something and I liked it. And I went to the Hammersmith Odeon to check them out. And I'd rung up Harvey or somebody and said, I want passes, you know, and I'd got passes. And I went, and I thought, well, I'll go and say hello. And I went backstage. And they were very kind of welcoming and rather kind of reverential and sort of, and we said hello, except for Michael Stipe, who sat in the corner, you know, kind of refusing to speak and ignoring me and whatever, which was fine. It was his gig or their gig. I didn't mind at all, but I sat and watched the show, which was great. I really enjoyed it. And then at the end they went off, and then he came back on and he sang Dark Globe a cappella on his own. And I thought that was great, you know. Well, I don't know if he was having a go at me or not, but I thought it was fantastic that he got some of the words wrong, but by and large it was great. I thought, how cool.
But a little bit strange that after he'd sort of ignored you, that you...
Well, he may be one of the Pink Floyd were nothing after Syd kind of camp, you know, of which there are a number. Or it may be that he just wanted to show me that he knew that bit of the work as well, you know. But it was great. He sang it really well, of course, because he's got a great voice, and it was very moving.
Just going back to Saucer Full of Secrets, because that really is the album that I guess Syd's reputation as a songwriter kind of rests on. Really, it's a very short period of time. There's quite a few songs there.
Saucer Full.
Am I right?
Well, I don't think he's got very much on Saucer Full of Secrets, has he?
I got this.
Piper at the Gates of Dawn.
Yeah. Saucer Full is the Jugband Blues.
Yeah.
Piper is the one.
Yeah.
And it's almost as though he kind of grew up very quickly as a songwriter from I mean, if you think, I was thinking of Arnold Lane is like very, and that isn't on there, but I know it's that period. It's like a very a new kind of pop song in a way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, through Astronomy Domino, which is tremendously inventive in terms of the musical side of it, the musicality of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then just pure songwriting with Bike, you know, it's a great spectrum in one album. And yet so quick, so fast, you know, such a concentrated short period of time.
Well, I'm not sure that it is, you see, because like all first albums of any artist or any band represent a number of years of making notes or jotting things down or writing songs or whatever. So, I mean, I don't have a very clear memory of the chronology of that period of Syd's writing, but because it was the first album, my suspicion is that those songs were probably written between, you know, over a period of 2 or 3 years rather than over a period of 6 months. That would be my guess.
At what point did it all start to go wrong for you and for Syd? I mean, obviously there was drug taking, but that must have been going on generally. At what point did it start to seem like?
Well, it may have well have been going on generally. I wasn't doing any drugs at all, apart from alcohol.
Right.
Syd was, I think, yeah, quite a lot. But I think Syd's illness. It probably, we can say that marijuana, to a certain extent, and acid to a large extent, can do nothing but exacerbate that collection of symptoms that we put together and loosely describe as schizophrenia. And so there is no doubt but that those things are very bad for schizophrenics. They worsen the condition and so on and so forth. And there is no doubt that Syd was schizophrenic and that he was taking those drugs at the same time. And we all became very worried and concerned about that, and tried to get him to shrink. So,
did you?
Mainly, of course, to what's his name, the famous drunk
Hardy Lang.
Yeah. Probably not a great choice, as it turned out in the end, but we never actually managed to get him through the front door. We, got him to the door a couple of times, but never got him through the door. And I alerted his family as well, and his elder brother Alan, I think, was a doctor, and he came up to see. He actually came up to London and see him, and went back and said, "No, he's fine. I've seen him. There's nothing wrong with him." Well, we all knew there was something seriously amiss, and we actually, as I'm sure you must know, we did a tour in '68 of the States. I mean, just of the West Coast. I think we only did 3 gigs or something. Where it was quite clear that he'd gone. He was, he was no longer with us in any real sense. Which is where, in the movie where the cigarette burns down between the fingers. Well, I went into the room and saw that. He'd been sitting in a room in the hotel in LA with this, bits of burned cigarette paper on his fingers like that, and the rest of the cigarette lying on the floor, and he sat there and it had burned down through his fingers without him noticing. So he was in a very sorry state.
That was in The Wall, the movie, when you said the movie.
Yeah, in The Wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
was there a point when you personally? Okay, so just.
Do you want to change reels?
Was there a point when you personally sort of took a look at Syd and thought, Christ, this is serious?
He was no longer able to function in a rock and roll band because he wasn't making enough contact with the reality of the situation. And some of it was some of it was hilariously funny. Some of the things he did, were hilariously funny. Like on the tour I was telling you about, we did the Pat Boone show, and Pat Boone came on and said hello, and what Syd would do is, through every run through or rehearsal, we were miming to see Emily play or something, I think, like that. And through the run-throughs, he'd be miming away. And then they go, "Okay, we'll take it," because we were taping it. And then when they went, "Action!" he'd stand there like that. Cut! "Okay, we're doing it now, guys. Ready?" And Syd would go, yeah. And he'd do it again and again, until finally we had to say, "Listen, he's a bit weird, I'll mime it." And I think those tapes exist still, He did all kinds of things like that. And in fact, towards the end, and it was at that point that I was suggesting to Peter and Andrew that I said, "Look, we can't go on like this, right? He's got to become Brian Wilson, because the thought of losing the flow of songs was disastrous for us at that point, because he was doing most of the writing. So he said, "Why doesn't he just write songs and come and record, and we'll go and do gigs?" But there's no way we can do that anymore. And I think at that point Syd had some idea that the band the way forward was to employ 2 girl saxophonists and some weird kind of idea. And then for a while, after Dave joined the band, we all kind of worked together, and Syd would come. We were trying to get songs out of him. And I'll never forget one day he came to a rehearsal place, room that we were in, and he said, with a new song. Oh, great, how does it go? And I remember sitting down with him with a guitar, and he was strumming away. And this song went, have you got the chorus? He said, I'll teach you the chorus. Okay, it goes like this. Have you got it yet? Cha, cha. Have you got it yet? Ch, ch. Have you got it yet? Ch, ch. And I went, okay, yeah, okay, I think and I'd say it goes like this, right? And we start playing together, and he'd do it slightly different, and then he'd do it slightly different. And after he kept changing it, and he changed, about the 6th time we'd done it, he was going on, I went, I've got it. And I just put the guitar down, and that was it. That was the last time I ever did anything with him. It was strange,
It's almost like he was sending you up in a way.
Yeah, absolutely, completely, yeah. That's exactly what it was, yeah. And it was a very clever joke, I was desperately trying to learn this thing, and it kept changing. Have you got it yet? Yep, got it. So...
I mean, his sister was saying that he's got this... He always had that love of the Goon Show and that sort of Goon Show humour.
This Rosemary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
How is she? I haven't seen her.
Oh, she's fine, yeah. She seems very, very well, actually.
40 years, Good.
Yeah. I would say maybe that's still in there, that was still in there, that sort of...
I'm sure, yeah.
The absurd, Goon Show-ish.
Yeah. Well, the Goon Show was kind of central to everybody's life in those days. The Goon Show became, it went Dick Barton at Special Agent, 6:30 on Tuesdays and Fridays or whatever it was, until they banned it because kids started killing themselves, by locking themselves in fridges and things, playing Dick Barton. And then Journey into Space on Wednesday nights. Whittaker, orders must be obeyed at all times without question. And then the Goon Show, sort of... that was the required listening, really. Those were the bits, and of course, Radio Luxembourg at night on a crystal set or a thing. That was the kind of required listening for my generation. Radio Luxembourg, particularly. That was where we got it all from. That was the only access that we had to American pop music was Radio Luxembourg. Kynsham, Keynsham.
Absolutely, yes. But the audience that are younger than us won't know what the hell we're talking about. Keynsham.
No, Horace Batchelor. He had a system for winning the football pools, which paid for it all, I suppose.
How difficult was it, though? You finally brought Dave Gilmour in, and Syd finally left. How difficult was it to kind of change and adjust and realise that songs were coming from you?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I suppose, if Corporal Clegg described one side of my oeuvre, the other side was Echoes, which was 2 albums. I think the second album after Saucerful of Secrets. There was a bit of stuff on Saucerful of Secrets, but I kind of, in a way, I discovered it in Echoes when I wrote 2 strangers passing in the street, or something, by chance 2 passing glances meet, and that thing about us all really being the same person, which became a kind of central theme of mine, and upon which, using my own history and my feelings, I kind of have gone on elaborating on that basic theme since. I discovered something that I could write about, which was a reality that a kind of social and political and philosophical reality of my life, which had actually very little to do with any other kind of literary or poetic influence. Whereas Syd seemed to be expressing himself almost in a more isolated way, and making literary connections and a lot of his inspiration seemed to come from the work of others.
Your writing seemed to, on the one hand, correct me if I'm wrong, but seemed to be like two really powerful themes. One is the theme of loss and grief over the loss of your father very early on.
Mm-hmm.
But then the other one, it seems to be married to that, is a kind of loss of Syd and grief about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just wonder how. I mean, I'm full of admiration for that you managed to turn it into, art and into something that's everyone can listen to and get something from, because there's a lot of feeling there, which sometimes feelings just go all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Syd appears obviously on Wish You Were Here a lot, and also in The Wall a lot. So he was my friendship with him and his illness combined, provide an enormous opportunity for grief. It's sad. It's very sad. I'm still very sad about it, and I occasionally read things where people have made contact with him, and I occasionally ask the question, round the side, I've heard from Rosemary, for instance, that he doesn't like contact with people from that part of his past. It upsets him, so I stay away from him. And and in a way, I think in a way that's all I can do, because it would not be cool to upset him, but it would upset me as well. Here's somebody who've been a friend with, you've had laughs with, and you've spent your youth with, and you've had all that history with, and to not be, and it's like, hello. It's just, it would be very uncomfortable for me as well to meet him again or to see him again.